Hi folks, welcome to the latest mwis Planning Outlook in association with Ellis Brigham. Now, a pretty rotten and cold day today across many places. The good news is that things are warming up quite considerably across the Highlands, at least as we go through the days ahead. High pressure is building in across the northern half of Britain. We're stuck though with some areas of low cloud as we go into the weekend, stubborn across some eastern hills in particular, and still some rain at times around across Wales even into early next week, but a lot of dry and fine weather for many ahead. We'll start off with a look through this chart for a change. This is one that shows cloud, the height of the cloud base, and quite a fuzzy view, but we can get a general picture of what's going on. This showing the height of cloud base in feet, so we're a little bit old school, but the green colours would indicate basically that fog is across the higher hills and mountains. If you're into the yellows, even modest hills are likely to have fog, and into the orange and particularly red, it's pretty much foggy from the lowest levels upwards. This is Saturday then, and starting on a rather murky note across many eastern regions and fairly extensive across the Pennines and into Wales as well. It stays most likely with fog across the borders, the Cheviots, the Pennines and maybe the Lake District fells as well, to low levels into the middle of the day. Things lifting a bit across the Highlands and some breaks suggested as well across the western side of Wales, developing through the middle of the day. Through the afternoon, Wales and the Peak District, the South Pennines doing pretty well, most of that cloud lifting, the Highlands doing well, but still stuck with a zone of low cloud across the north of England and south of Scotland. Now, some areas of the Lake District toward the south and west locally may well get some breaks, but higher fells may well just be stuck with this, and across the Pennines and the borders, that fog to low levels may well persist all day. Take the story onwards then through the days ahead. Sunday looks as though we start off on a rather foggy note for many eastern hills across the Pennines into Wales as well. We've got an easterly drift that's still coming in here. Further west, the higher cloud levels still stuck with a legacy of that cloud, I suspect, through Sunday daytime for England and Wales, lifting with time so that many hills begin to clear at least through the afternoon. Some of the higher eastern Pennine tops may just be stuck with banks of cloud. And just notice that there's some low cloud as well, just drifting toward the north of Scotland. A weak warm front is coming in here. Take the story further forwards, there's still some weather going on toward the south and southwest, hence the very low cloud for the far south of England and the far south of Wales. A front is still circulating around low pressure in this part of the world, but as we go into Monday, many of the hills and mountains of Britain are in the clear. Watching though that zone of cloud and rain potentially across mid and south Wales. Now there's some coastal fog that may well drift around Scotland as we go into the middle of the week with high pressure in charge, but there's some damp air that's just trying to circulate around it. Most of the hills and mountains in the clear. It might be that some of the highest slopes near the coast are above the fog level, as there's a bit of an inversion in place there, but some lingering banks of low cloud and coastal fog could be around. Detail is sketchy as we go onwards to Tuesday on this chart, that just could get dragged in on a northeasterly breeze even toward the borders and the Pennines at this stage. Let's have a look at the synoptic charts then for the days ahead to flesh out that story a bit further. Saturday sees high pressure then toward the north and west, keeping much of the Highlands in a dry picture. Some murkiness as we saw across eastern regions, particularly in the morning. And the leftovers of Friday's weather basically is still affecting southern Scotland, England and Wales, and it's that zone of dampness, drizzle, patchy rain that affects the borders and the eastern Pennines much of the day. A few dregs of rain and a few showers possible for the Peak District and Wales, but some brighter skies developing here. Now the wind mostly light compared to Friday's strong winds, but still a rather brisk northeasterly for a time around the south of Scotland, north of England and Wales, where temperatures will stay on the cool side. But for the Highlands, with some bright spells coming through, temperatures on the Munros getting towards double figures. Low pressure stays toward the south on Sunday. The risk of some of that pivoting back into South Wales with some rain trying to come in here. Many places though are dry with some sunshine coming through, typically best towards western regions of England and Wales and a bit more widely across the Highlands, but some high-level cloud associated with various bits of weak fronts coming around from the northwest may just make things a little bit hazy at times, but visibility generally very good. Just the risk of some dampness and some low cloud coming in to the far northwestern coasts of Scotland. Light winds for many, but still an easterly breeze across the South Pennines and across Wales. Could be quite gusty in places. Temperatures then across the Highlands will warm up even more than we saw on Saturday. We've still got a circulating area of low pressure which lies to the south into Monday, so that's the risk of some rain for South Wales. Further north than that, most likely a dry day. We've got a very weak warm front just toppling eastwards across Scotland, which gives that risk, as mentioned, of some banks of low-level cloud or fog just around some coastal districts, mainly toward the north and west. It's generally a dry day then across the Highlands and northern England. A very low risk of an isolated afternoon shower, mainly toward the eastern side of the Highlands. As things get quite warm and relatively humid, there may just be the odd one that does develop. A good amount of sunshine, a bit of cloud building up through the course of the day. Warm conditions continue onwards into Tuesday for the northern half of Britain. We're still bothered with a zone of low pressure and rain toward the southeast meanwhile. Small risk of an isolated shower, but most places across Wales, northern England and Scotland should be dry. A chance of some low cloud coming in to the west and northwest coasts, and one or two fog patches also perhaps just around the North Sea. A similar story into Wednesday, but we're still watching for just bits of dampness and coastal fog which may still topple around our area of high pressure. Generally a dry story then, a good deal of sunshine around for many places, and even across the southeast of England we may just about be getting rid of the previous zone of rain. What about further ahead then, and things naturally complicated as we go further down the line. This is where we pick things up in the middle of the week. High pressure is stationed toward the north. We've got the remnants of low pressure around France and the Low Countries, producing some very thundery conditions ongoing in that part of the world. And we're then also seeing a zone of low pressure over the mid-Atlantic. And all these features will just move around gradually as we head towards the weekend. It's likely that high pressure stays in charge for a few more days later in the week across the northern side of Britain. We're just being maybe nibbled away at from the southwest by a trough of low pressure, which produces the risk of some areas of rain or a few thundery showers starting to encroach into the story as we head toward the weekend. If that trough begins to move in, the high is still though positioned towards our north and northeast, so most likely still we're in a dry story for many later on in the week and possibly next weekend as well. We'll try and get the detail further ahead in a general sense, because it's maybe a bit of a three-way story really. One zone of high pressure to the northeast, a trough of low pressure maybe in for a time from the southwest, and another zone of high pressure trying to build towards us from the Azores. The story may well go that some thundery conditions are around for a time, just say next weekend or early the following week, before that gets shunted out of the way and dry, warm or even hot conditions come back up from the southwest further down the line. That's maybe the general 10-day story, that we go back to generally dry and warm conditions, but just maybe bothered for a while by something more unsettled around next weekend or just beyond. A lot to play for in how that detail plays out, but that seems to be the general sequence. We shall keep an eye on all those developments. That's been your planning outlook in association with Ellis Brigham. Thanks for watching today. Bye for now.